Hello and welcome to the Nonsense Chronicles. I am Doug Sashry, and as always, I am joined by
Rob Mendiola.
Yeah, and here we are, another evening of recording, trying to catch a few and put them in the bank. So if we travel and we can't be here to do it in studio, then we'll always have a few saved up.
There you go.
But yeah, today, before I introduce him, we are talking to a guy who's been through hell. I don't know. His personal choices he made and turned his life around, then getting sick and fighting it. Like, he's got to be one of the most hard-headed individuals I've ever known in my life, but also somebody that I absolutely love. And his name is John Janatsch. How you doing today, John?
I'm doing all right, guys. How are you?
Doing good.
Very
Yeah.
good.
John is a promoter in the Houston area, although he has gone outside of the Houston area to promote. But in Houston, he is well known. And John, we figured we'd talk about everything today. Talk about how you got where you were born, how you got your start. Just a little bit about everything. We pretty much freelance here.
All right, yeah. Just ask the questions, I'll answer them.
Yes, sir. So how did you get in the promoter business?
Really, it was by, I used to, of course, I was on DJ. I used to do a lot of radio, and I was on TV.
I did not know that.
And yeah, I was a DJ for, when internet radio came out. I did a lot of that, and I was one of the original DJs here in Texas, in Houston for, when they came, internet radio came out. Matter of fact, one year I competed with the Buzz on the Houston Press Awards.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Trying to win best radio station,
I'll be doggone. And I guess promoting what turned the trick, I guess, for you to start promoting?
My kid, Tracy, and her husband at the time, AJ, asked me, "Hey, would you go? Would you talk to this band and go check them out and all this good stuff and everything?" And that band, of course, at the time was Five Eyes Wide, which, matter of fact, James Lawler
Mm-hmm.
was in. Him and Stan West.
Okay.
So I said, "Yeah, I'll go check it out." And it was at the what's the building that was torn down here? The legendary building. Fitzgerald's.
Mm-hmm.
It was at Fitzgerald's in their second, on the bottom floor. And I looked around, and it was a really small crowd. I'm like, man, we got to do something, And my wheels started turning. I'm like,
So that was the inspiration.
All right.
Inspiration.
Yeah, I was like, I could use my personality because I was, pretty well known as a DJ.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I can help these, and Lawler and Stan were like, "Yeah, man, you need to come help us, build crowds and stuff." So I said, "All right, let's do it," So I built a series called Rocket Fest at the time, a yearly series. I put big festivals together with local bands, just to celebrate their, and have a good time with them.
Okay.
And that's how it all began.
Mm-hmm.
And what year around was that?
Oh, God. It had to be a good 15 years ago at least.
Okay.
And it's been a long. I mean, I had experience in prior to that, but not but way back when I did it, you got bands and they would volunteer to jump on a national show. I already had exposure like that back in the day, But this is when I really took promoting serious. Is when I got asked to jump in.
And when did Second Chance promotion start?
Well, I was, of course, my company was GSPTV Houston with a gentleman named George Escanza. we were on TV when the digital networks came out. I was on TV. I don't know, 3, 4 stations or something like that through the digital network. And once I jumped on TV, I became very well known. I was well known with of course, radio, but I became very well known where I couldn't even go get tacos without being recognized. Yeah, literally, yeah. It was like, and I wasn't a big fan of all the attention that I was gaining. I like to be, being behind the scenes type guy.
Mhm.
I didn't like going and get tacos or me and my wife sitting down for dinner with the kids. Hey, aren't you so and so?
Right.
I didn't like all that.
It's
So
always-
I left TV, and of course I met during that time Suey Gordon. I met Suey from the TV show Pit Bulls and Pro Elites.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic guy.
Yeah, and I knew him prior to him being on the TV show. He was a buyer for me. Matter of fact, first show he ever bought with me was Head PE.
Nice.
Yeah.
And they're on tour right now.
Yes. Yeah, matter of fact, yeah, they kicked Crazy Town off there,
Yeah.
which is a big mess. I turned that tour down because of Crazy Town.
Right.
Like I didn't want to. I knew about Crazy Town prior to,
Yeah.
and their behaviors.
Yeah, they have their demons, that's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And I didn't want to. And me, I've already dealt with Wes and his demons and others with with those demons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't want to die. I already knew Crazy Town had those demons, and I didn't want to deal with it.
You got to pick the battles, man. Pick the ones you want to
Absolutely
go in on. That's
Yeah.
Part of a promoter, is
You want them to show up, and that's
yeah,
having
because
all
I mean
that's
you have
unpredictable,
yeah, you've got relationships with these venues, and you're here touting, hey this, hey that, hey this, and then we both know what happens when that something goes wrong with that. Then the egg, the egg is usually on your face, even though the act can be the problem. There's guilt, in personal when you fail at something because somebody else, and you can't control the actions of others, but you can certainly set yourself up in a position to be around those that you can fairly depend on.
Yeah, exactly. I am a risk taker, like I've done, with a lot of big bands that have had issues.
Oh yeah, I mean, they've all usually had. If they're still around, then they definitely had them and they've learned. So that's usually how that goes.
Well, when I came in, and then started doing nationals, I had the first national I did under the GSP TV Houston flag. I contacted Straight Line Stitch. I had a real good friend named Mike Garrett that was the agent for Straight Line Stitch from Atlanta, Georgia. So I called him and said, man, hey, look, I want to start, want to go ahead and move from just doing locals to start bringing in some nationals. I got buyers. I got, people to, to support me on this. He said, all right, I'll send you Straight Line Stitch. And that's where it all began, is with Straight Line Stitch coming in. And I don't know if y'all remember the band I Empire.
I don't
No.
Yeah, I Empire was a really, really strong band. It had Corey Lowry and some really great musicians in it. And then of course, they're gone now.
Mm.
They've jumped over the line. Then here comes Saving Abel and Drowning Pool and all these other bands. Everything just started falling in place to where I'm at today.
And still working with them.
Yeah, that's how
Still booking them.
And that's how we met. Yeah.
That's absolutely. Yeah, through Drowning Pool, yeah.
Yeah, I was I had another friend in Dallas years ago that told me, and I always bring this up, but I was told he is man, always be leery of promoters, and but John, the first couple times I talked to him, but no, he whatever he said he was going to do. And he always went well beyond what he said he was going to do. That's one thing about John. There's no quit in him. John's
Obviously.
battled some health issues for a few years now, which we'll get into. And, you pretty much have to staple him to the ground to make him stop, He's a
Well, it was funny because C.J. Pierce, I don't know if you know this, but he's one of the founders of the name Second Chance Productions.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I was sitting with CJ one day. I brought in a side project, As Above, So Below.
Mm-hmm.
And Stewie, of course, like I said, was a buyer at the time, but I lost contact with Stewie because after the head PE show, Stewie told me, hey, I'm going to go out of town. I'm going to go to Louisiana and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, look, don't carry, because at the time he wasn't, doing proper business. He wasn't just there he was selling drugs and doing the wrong things.
Right.
And I told Stewie, hey, look, man, you're going to going through Louisiana, you're going to get caught up. They're not, I said, don't carry. Just go there and go see whoever and come back. I said, all right, man. So a couple of years went by, and I was helping his family during that time, in touch with his wife and helping his wife and kids when they needed something. And a couple of years later, Stewie calls me out of the blue. Says, hey, man, guess what? I'm back. I said, who the hell is this? And he goes, it's Stewie. He says, do me a favor. I said, what's that? He says, dude, turn on Animal Planet. It's like, huh? He says, yeah, turn on Animal Planet. So I yelled at Lita and said, hey. And Lita and Chelsea were watching TV. I said, do me a favor, turn on Animal Planet real quick. And they're like, Animal Planet? Okay. So we turn it on, there's Stewie.
Yep.
Starting in an episode of Pit Bulls and Parolees.
Yep.
Very cool.
And Stewie was like, I wasn't going to contact you until I was successful. After you warned me not to get in trouble and I knew how you stood. And sure enough, he became successful. So we came up with this idea, let's raise money for the dogs, to help the show.
Mm-hmm.
So we contacted CJ, and CJ was due to come here with As Above, So Below, his side project with his brother. And we sat down, and, we were like, I said, look, I want to drop the GSP TV Houston name, and we're going to do this. Let's start off fresh, with a fresh outlook. I was like, with the fresh name, fresh outlook. And Stewie was like, well, what about the name Second Chance? He says, the TV show's giving me a second chance. You, of course, you've been sober for a while, and you got the same prison backgrounds and the whatnot. And you had a second chance to get right with the getting sober. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. I like that.
It's a good
So
name.
that's where Second Chance was born. And CJ was like, shit, just let me know where to show up.
Yeah.
That's one thing about John is he's very encouraging to people to get a second chance, but he can smell bullshit a million miles away too, because he's been that bullshitter before, before I met him, but he had been through all those battles and he knows it. He can sniff it out right away if somebody is not doing the work that they need to do, and it comes with the territory, I guess, my friend. Is that right?
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer everybody's going to, there is not one perfect human being in this world.
No.
The only perfect human being that I know of, and even he wasn't perfect, is Jesus Christ himself.
True that.
I mean, he gave his life for our sins. So he already set the opportunity for us to have a second chance in life.
That's right. That's
to find his way. Yeah, to find his way to find a way to heaven. And, God gave his only son to do this. And that's, so a second chance. And I was already spiritually connected to all, through all this. So I was like, that works perfect. And believe it or not, when we launched this thing, we were like, all right. And I was contacted by my agent friend and they happen to have what's his name from Shinedown, guitarist,
Zach?
Zach Myers.
Yeah, Zach Myers.
And Zach Myers happened to be doing Zach Mack and More, which is his side project. It's an acoustic show that does with two other guys, and he was touring on that. So I was like, all right, hey. So me and Suey sat down, and we were like, wait a minute, this is a great way to launch. We'll have CJ come in and do this Houston show, and then we'll do a show with Zach Myers, and then we'll do 3 or 4 cities with Zach Myers, and then I don't know if you know this, but in Louisiana, the TV show Pitbulls and Police own the bar.
Yeah, I think it
where all the
New Orleans area,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
yes, where all the proceeds would go to help feed the dogs. So I contacted the agent back, said, okay, we'll take the show, but I want 3 of them. And he goes, 3? Yeah, I want 3 solid dates, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And he says, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to do the first one at the BFP Rock Club, which at the time, that was my home club. I said, I want to go to the 18th Street Pier, which was across town, close to Scout Bar at the time, in the Dickinson area.
Right.
And then we want to end it up in Louisiana on the TV show Pitbulls and Police. And that's what we did. We bought on 3 shows. I had great crowds, do them all, and did well. We raised a lot of money. We got our money back, and then raised money for the dogs. And Second Chance was born.
Cool.
Not too shabby, man.
Yeah, it was a gamble, but we wanted to gamble. We wanted to take that chance.
Yeah, I would get.
And
go ahead.
I did a lot of things that were across the way. I'm known to be a risk taker in this industry. I did a lot of that crossed the grain. People said there's I would buy, like the Zach Myers show or Saving Abel or Drowning Pool, and people kept saying, or Saliva. People kept saying you can't do 2 shows in the same vicinity and get away with it. And I said, well, that's bullshit. Excuse, whoops. Are you allowed to cuss on this thing? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But
you can free flow,
I
man.
said, yes. Okay. I was like, well, that's bullshit. So I used to set one up at BFP. And I would set one up at the 18th Street Pier. Like I did Drowning Pool that way. I did BFP, and then I did, the 18th Street Pier. Sold them both out. And then we went to College Station and hit that one and sold that one out too. Did 3 solid shows with Drowning Pool and sold them all out. And I changed the pattern of people's thinking because Houston's so big. People don't realize there's 5 million people, here.
Oh, yeah.
Not everybody's going to drive all the way north. Houston's so spread out. You can go from the BFP Rock Club to Scout Bar, and it will take you a good hour and 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That's very true. Heard somebody talking about that today about driving in Houston. Somebody from Dallas and said it's just forever. And yeah, it is. It's pretty expansive. But you know,
when I was told it couldn't be done, I said, "Shoot, watch this." And I did it. I produced it. I produced it with the locals. And the bar owners, and it turned out to be a great thing. And I just kept building the status to where I'm at now.
Yeah, that's right. Because I remember when I first came in that John was doing that. He would run a show on the north side, then run it down on the south side the next night. And but I would imagine that being a promoter it's basically like being a gambler, because you're putting money out, and then you're hoping that you're getting it back, every time,
Oh, when I first started this, it was always a gamble. I'd bring in, shows that I think would do well, and I'd lose, $500,000, sometimes more. And it was like, ooh, and then having to go see the wife, after you lost that type of money.
Yeah, that's
And,
that can get on you for a
and
little
that's
bit.
when I started getting buyers that had the money to take the risks. I mean, because I have a very high, success rate in music in the industry, and I probably carry the highest, still. I was one of the highest for many, many years. And I hit the highest success rate for several years in a row. And then, I maintained, right up at the top echelon of success rate, even buying shows, across town from each other, but it was a gamble. It was a lot of work. American Roadhog Cyclists was my big buyer for the drowning pool one. We did 3 straight days. We did Friday at BFE, Saturday at the 18th Street Pier, and then that Sunday we did College Station at the Grand Stafford Theater. Back then they had a radio station, the whole 9 yards, and it was, they were able to advertise really, really well for us, to the college students and whatnot. And that's a fun little city. College Station.
Yep.
Yeah. College
That's
town.
a fun little city. Yeah. I
That's
did the same thing with Saving Abel. Several bands I brought up there.
well, what about the we're gonna transition a little bit. I was gonna ask you, John, when did you first get sick?
I found out I had cancer in 2020 when
Yeah.
all the COVID and everything else was getting started.
Kind of the same time.
I was doing tune cancer, the big
Mm-hmm.
cancer benefit that, where we were donating money to the children in
Oh.
Texas Children's Hospital.
The Wildcatter event.
Yeah, the Wildcatter have been the very first, the second annual tune cancer
Mm-hmm.
at Wildcatters. And that weekend, I thought I had kidney stones.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, something ain't right. I'm not as mobile as I'm usually, and I'm trying to move equipment and whatnot and help my loaders out and help the bands out, because we didn't hire a bunch of people. We had volunteers,
Right.
to help do all the moving. So I was trying to move equipment. And I kept saying, damn, something's not right.
You were hurting.
I felt like I had kidney stones on my right side.
He was
And I
all,
was in
you already
huge
did.
pain.
Yeah, he was already dealing with COPD for years, and during the middle of the summer, John would, his band's coming in, and John's not lazy, man. He will sit and drag equipment back and forth in the summer, and you can tell when he was getting a little bit winded, going to give him a hand, but yeah, nothing really slows him down too much, so he had to get this kind of slapped him in the face, but boy, it took a long time for him to even slow down, to be told he had to get slowed down. But
so from the pain that you felt, that tune-out cancer, that's what sent you to the hospital to
Well, yeah, I
figure
did
out
the
what's going
whole
on.
weekend and 2 ounce cancer. I said, fuck it, I'm going to suck it up. It's only kidney stones.
Yeah.
I'm going to suck it up and I'm going to get through this. And I got through the whole weekend because to me, it was very important to raise money for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big advocate to help kids. And so I pushed through and did the whole weekend. And then that Monday, I told my wife, I need to go to the doctor. Something ain't right. Something's not right. So we set up a doctor's appointment and everything. And doctor gave me this, what's called a smear test that you can mail in to see if you have cancer. He did a bunch of blood work. I was waiting for that to come back. And he put me on some medication, to help with that because I was swelling up big time.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought it was just issues, going to the bathroom or something,
Right.
something simple. And while we waited on these tests to come back, they were doing that. And then after I mailed it in, within that, I don't know, it took them a week to get back to me after getting the test mailed in. And they said, you need to come in. We need to talk. I said, all right. They said, your test came back, you have cancer.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, so what are we going to do about it?
yeah.
You know?
What's next?
You know?
Yeah. Get to work.
Yeah. So they were like, we're going to send you over to see this doctor is, this doctor named Dr. Howe. We think you're what's called stage 2, which is just a tumor, in your colon. And, I was like, all right, cool. So this whole time I was in serious pain. And I'm thinking, something still ain't right. So I get to Dr. Howe, and I'll never forget the name Dr. Howe because the first thing I thought is Gilligan's Island.
Yeah.
Mr. Howell.
Mr. Howell.
Are you all right? And I even asked him, I was, singing the Gilligan's Island song when he came in the room. I said, are you related to, Howell?
Got to be the smart ass. Yeah.
Yeah. My wife, my lady was like, oh, my freaking God, you didn't go there. I said, yeah, well, you never know. The Howells did pretty well on Gilligan's Island.
Mm-hmm.
He might be a relative over here.
That's funny.
And he says, no, I'm afraid not. And so he says, look, we got to sit down and talk. And so he says, I need to get you in for emergency surgery. So what do you mean? He says, you're completely compacted. If I don't get you in as soon as possible, you're going to die.
Wow.
Well, fuck, what are we waiting on?
Yeah. Let's go.
And I'm still, same sarcastic, but everybody knows. So, so he set me up. It was like 2 days after, because I had to take certain medicine to try to clear my system, and they got all these steps that you got to do surgery.
So you went into surgery 2 days after?
After meeting the doctor, yeah.
Wow.
He says I was completely, clogged.
Fast.
I wasn't going to the bathroom. Yeah, I wasn't going to the bathroom at all.
Yeah.
And that's why I was in so much pain. The tumor was so big, it literally blocked my colon shut.
Wow.
And by the time I got to the hospital, I was completely, I was getting to the point to where I was getting lethargic because the point, all the pressures that were, once you leave crap in your system or you can't urinate, of course it turns into poisons.
Oh yeah.
That can kill you. And I started getting into that range. So, we get the surgery done and everything. And then all of a sudden, of course, we're dealing with the COVID issues too. This was the very beginning of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
It was not easy to navigate
when
that.
I first got there, my kids were allowed to go see me. My wife was able to come and go. Justin came and see me. Lawler came and see me. Justin from Wildcatters came up to see me. All that. Now I went through surgery, got it done, and the whole 9 yards. And and I'm in there a couple days. I'm worried because I got Sir Mix-a-Lot at the end of the week. I got to be at.
Oh yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah. And here comes that Wednesday. The show was on Friday. And here comes that Wednesday, and the doctor's like, hey, look, man. He says, I'm going to have to send you to a specialist. So what do you mean? He says, the colon exploded, your tumor exploded the colon, and it's in your liver as well. You're a stage 4, not a stage 2.
Wow.
Jesus.
And well, fuck them. I said, what the hell's that mean? And he says, well, I'm going to send you to a specialist that deals with cancer. And we can go through the steps. I'm like, all right, whatever. I said, look, I need to get out of here by Friday. We need to figure this out. I need to be here.
I've got a show, man.
Yeah, I did. This is literally, this was literally my concern, is showing up.
Yeah.
And I was like, he says like, oh, well, I don't know, because your blood pressure's been high, this, that, and the next thing. I need you to start walking. And I said, well, fuck, why didn't you say so? I'll start walking. And that's when they told me, we couldn't have the kids in the building anymore because of the COVID issue.
Mm-hmm.
So what I went, he told me to go smoke a cigarette. The doctor did, to get my blood pressure down because the hospital wasn't leaving me without, letting me leave until my blood pressure was down. I'm like, cool. And at this point, my kids couldn't come into the building. So my wife came up to see me and, So I go and they're all stitched up, freaking in a lot of freaking pain because I just had a freaking, the surgery. I take off to the other side of the hospital. They told me to walk around. I said, all right, I'll go walk around. You just walk back and forth on the floor. All right, so I walked all the way to the elevator and took off. To the clears to the other side of the damn hospital. Went out to the parking garages with the kids and smoked a cigarette and everything else. And came all the way to hell back, and they were like, where'd you go? I said, well, you said to walk. So I went and walked to the parking garage and back. You did what? Oh, yeah, I had to hear it big time from the nurses.
He went on a 3-hour tour.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I said, I just said, it's a 3-hour tour.
Yeah.
3-hour tour. And I had Dr. Howell, so I was like, look, I was tied in with the, the Gilligan Island.
Hell yeah.
It's good. So they were like, well, you can't just do that. I said, look, man, y'all wouldn't let my kids up on the floor. I'm going to do what the fuck I want to do.
Yeah, you really have. They really have to specify to him if they leave anything open. I guarantee you, he's gonna do whatever he wants to do on it.
Yeah. Well, now they know John down there very well.
They did, but at the beginning, they did not, and they left doors open that he would clearly walk through. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They told me straight out, start walking. I was like, okay. So I kept walking. Walking all the way down the elevator across the freaking hospital, and if you ever been to St. John's Hospital, you know that son of a bitch is a couple blocks long.
Oh yeah. And to
I
go
wound up way on the other side of the freaking hospital.
And to go smoke a cigarette. Yeah, of all things, COPD and cancer. But yeah, at this point, I'm like, whatever,
I mean, now we're here in 2023.
3 years later.
And John's still fighting.
And I'm like, well, whatever's going to make that guy relax, go ahead, because whatever he's doing, his odd system is working. Yeah. His odd system is working.
Well, it's like, I've always gone across the green on everything I've done. I always went by what I felt was best for John, not what the doctors would say, not what counselors would say. What John felt was right for him is what I would do.
Yeah, I mean,
I still live by that today.
We've all had opinions. All your friends that we consider ourselves close friends, we've all had opinions and giving you advice. But in the reality is, and especially it showed us over time that if anything, whatever works best for one individual, that's that individual. That's not anybody else. And I mean, look. I know people that have gone 18 months, and that's usually about. There you go. Like John is going 3 years. I mean, that's insane, man. And
got a lot of fight.
Yeah, he has quite a bit of fight in him, man. And at first,
I've done 3 years. I just passed 3 years of chemo a couple weeks ago.
It's incredible.
Which, of course, like you said, there's unheard of numbers.
So how many?
I'm a little upset because they stopped me from the world record.
Yeah. Tell everybody how many rounds of chemo you've had, John.
Well, at that point, when we changed to a new chemo because the chemo I was on, didn't, stop working.
Yeah, the liquid.
And the cancer was spreading. Yeah. So they changed me to a pill format for 21 days straight. But I was at 46 full treatments.
Wow.
Jesus.
I was closing in on the world record.
Wow.
God, yeah. I have a niece that just did 12, and John did 46. And that doesn't count any of the radiation, anything like that, right?
None of the radiations, none of the surgeries, nothing.
3 times that.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, and I was in the world records like 52 or something like that.
Well, you're almost there.
I was like, oh yeah, I was almost there, and then he gives me the news that we're changing to pill form. I said, wait a minute, hold on, that means I'm not going to reach the world record.
Follow the man.
Can we finish it all so I can get the world record, then change? And the doctor asked my wife, are you serious? I said, yeah, well, yeah, I'm afraid so. He's serious. I said, well, I look at it as, well, if I hit the world record, I'm in the Guinness Book of World Records. You and others can go, I knew that crazy motherfucker.
Yeah, that's right.
This guy right here glowed in the dark when he walked into a club,
That's right.
And
He is Mr. Antifreeze when he pees.
yeah, yeah, and for me, it was like, when I took on cancer head on, number one, I got, 10 kids. Well, now I got 15 grandkids. I got a beautiful wife. Y'all all know, both know Lita.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't going out. I wasn't going out, hey, with cancer like a lot of people do. Get tired of fighting, or not even, they hear the word cancer and it scares them
Mm-hmm.
to where, they feel like it's a death sentence right away. And I get it. I get, why people quit fighting. I've had, we were just at a service for a friend that quit, they pretty much quit fighting on,
That's very true. It's very true.
and I've seen, a lot of my friends that have quit, or, a lot of patients that I've talked to when I started, pass away, we were just talking, your wife, Rob, Spring, and myself were at the doctor's this past Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about all the nursing staff that's there, how many were there at the beginning when I started.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only 3 nurses that are still there from when I started.
Wow.
Everybody else, there's like, I don't know, 20 nurses that take care of you and stuff throughout, the process, and only 3 of them are left from when I started.
And
I'm longer reigning. I should be on the payroll, honestly.
Yeah.
He is. It's just unbelievable.
Well, definitely for inspiring people too, though.
Yeah, because I can't.
Yeah.
I would say during this 3 years, there's been at least 2 times when I was like, I contacted friends and I said, get in touch with John now. This is a good time to do it right now. And here he comes about 8, 9 days later. He's like, hey, what's going on? He just give me a call. I'm like, my God, man. Yeah. And that, it's just, you talked about it, and we can't put that in everybody because we're all different, but.
Well, and when I first started, I told my wife, I want to make a difference. If I'm going to fight cancer, I want to do it my way. I want to, because I understood I was already a public figure. I've been in magazines, and I've been on the, on the news, and I've been, for my accolades and, music, for everything I've ever done in music. And I said, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to make a difference. I said, I'm going to leave my battle public because I think I can help people, reach people.
I think you
teach
have.
them, and teach them how to fight, not to give up. I said, if nothing else, win or lose my battle, if nothing else, I'm going to teach people life ain't that bad. You can fight through things and get to the other side of it.
Sure.
And how many amazing experiences and stories have you even built, during this fight? I mean, there's been so many things that have gone on that you've been a part of, and people that have come and talked, and
Well, I've done like the Houston Community College. We set up speakings. Myself and Frida set up clinics, male clinics, to help educate people in their battle. Not only with, cancer, but with drugs and alcohol and then depression and other things. We would cover all the subjects. And it was funny, the first time she did it, she created this flyer, and I brought in one of my doctors, Dr. Garza, to speak on the cancer end. And they make this flyer, and it's got all these people with education and drug and alcohol counselors and doctors, and then there's my photo, little me. There's my photo on there that has no fucking education.
But you do.
I went to the school of hard knocks. I spent my time in prison, not getting educated.
That's still knowledge.
That's still an education, man.
Yeah.
Look, I mean,
Yeah,
because you've learned.
Motivational speaker,
Yeah.
You've learned.
I was like, wow.
And I remember years ago, you told me that there was a, it's strange because how many times I get stuff wrong and something bad happens, but John said there was a judge that gave him a second chance.
Mm-hmm.
And it probably was a 50th chance at the time, but that
was,
judge,
2005. I sat at the crossroads in life. And for people that don't know, I've been convicted, my criminal record has 48 convictions on it.
whew,
Between drinking, driving, and alcohol offenses and fighting. I'm a very big fighter when I drink.
Mm.
And and it's a true story. You could run my name and you'll say, holy shit. Because I still today say, wow, I did all that.
and I can, yeah,
So-
and I can tell you that I've known John since, I don't know, 2012 or 13, somewhere in there. And this apparently was well before, because this guy's a saint, and he is a friend. And if you need something, he is not, like I said, he's not in 100%. He's in 190%, so that this life.
Yeah, I've never seen that side of John.
Yeah, I've never seen it. And, I had an uncle like that too, that when he was alive, he went to church every day. When I was a teen and we were out running stores together, whatever town we're in, he knew where the Catholic church was, and he was at the 6 a.m. mass, which I was not. But that meant I was waking up when he was up. And they said it was because when he's atoning for his youth. Well, I never knew him like that. Just like I never knew John. And so apparently he's but the stories are fantastic. I mean, that just, I can't believe it. But that is a good example of somebody turning a corner, which everybody has a capability to do it. But do you want to? And John's been a success. And he's met all kind of people in his life.
And that's the first thing I preach. If you want something, and that's what I teach my kids. If you want something, you go get it. But you go get it through work. You put the work in. Put the effort in to do it the right way. The biggest lesson, like I was teaching, I was speaking with one of the kids at a 307 departure the other night.
Right.
I look at life as you got a right side of the road and you got the left side of the road. Right side of the road is putting in the work, doing the right things, and going straight down the street to where you reach your goal. The left side of the road, you can do all the do the things that you're doing. You can lie, cheat, and steal to get yourself ahead and to get yourself to that point. But when you get to the end of the road, you're going to find out at U-turns.
Yeah,
you're going back to the beginning and to start over.
I'll explain.
You're going to find a big U-turn.
Yeah,
because you didn't do it the right way in the first place.
You get to a certain point, but you'll get no further than that. Yeah, and the right way, is with integrity and everything else like that, and you'll never have to backtrack on it. Whether you get to whatever level you get in life, you're right. Doing it that way, it makes the possibilities unlimited.
When Judge Carter gave me that shot, I ran with it in 2005 when he says, I believe you can change it. He's the very first person in my life that said, I believe you can change. And I ran with it. I've run with it to today, and it's been a great blessing. Now I have the cancer. I've become a public speaker for that. I do a lot of speakings on it, on not only that, but my drugs and alcohol background. And I put my whole story out there, life story, and let people judge you for who you may, for what it is. And you were there the day we did during COVID, where we did the clinic at HCC, and you had to sit in your cars.
Yep.
You had to sit in your car so you didn't get sick from the COVID.
Yeah, I remember that well.
And then I looked, and you remember, as a matter of fact, I introduced you to Stevie Ray that day.
No. No, you did. I talked to him that day, but you introduced me to him the first time on that place that was off of Kirkendall. You remember that? One of my kids was there the other day for some other little festival. Remember that establishment that opened up on Kirkendall?
Oh, okay, tumbleweeds.
Yep.
Yes.
That's where you introduced
Yeah,
me.
that's right.
him
The
the
big
first
launch.
time.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's where I met him for the
Yeah,
first
okay.
time. Look, you know,
He,
that, you know, you going.
which, for those that don't know who Stevie Ray is, who we're speaking on, it's WWE Hall of Famer, one half of the tag team, Harlem Heat wrestling legend. He happens to be my best friend. We've
Yeah,
been best friends for well over 30 years. He knew me back, when I was very much a wild card.
yeah, just
Way back in the late 80s, early 90s.
How about stories?
Yeah.
yeah, he's got
Oh,
stories.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's got stories,
know.
and every big event for John or one John's involved in, he's always there.
Yeah.
And
He was at his awards show
yeah,
as well.
yeah, he was.
Him and Suey.
Yeah,
Yeah, when everybody didn't, when it was against doctor's orders to
Right.
even
Yeah,
show up. For
yeah.
the war.
yeah,
But you know what? Yeah, you, Rob, and your wife, Spring, and, Morgan
Yeah. A
and
lot of people were involved in
Jay,
that.
and everybody put so much work
Yep.
into doing that award show. There was no way in hell I was going to miss it.
Yeah, the whole Wildcatter team was involved.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people
Yeah,
involved with
Wildcat.
that. Yeah.
yeah. You know,
There was. Y'all put so much effort into that to establish an award, and of course, you could go into what the award's for and whatnot, but there was no way I was going to miss it.
Yeah.
None. Until I freaking fell out, and Stevie Ray made me go home.
yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that too.
Hey, but you made it though. You still.
That's
got there.
right. That's right.
And little did I find out, a week and a half later, I was very, very ill.
Yeah.
And I had no idea. At that show, I was very ill
Mm-hmm.
and wound up hospitalized.
Yeah, I remember that. That was one of the times like, oh no, is this it? And nope, here he comes back again.
Yeah. Well, yeah, December. Yeah, that was first week of December. They tell my wife things don't look good, And there was a lot of panic going on because it didn't look like I was coming back from that. Because I was at the time when I checked in, because I always thought it was, the cancer making me sick. And I'll just fight through it. I'll get to the other side of it just like I've been. Well, little did I know my body was infected. I had a urine infection and whatnot because I wasn't, passing things properly. And I'm like, well, fuck. And I was throwing up blood. I'm talking, I showed up at the hospital with about a half a bucket of blood in the bucket there.
Wow.
Yes.
And I was like, hey, I'm not feeling too well. And they moved me straight up to intensive care right away.
Well, it's amazing you can still laugh and tell jokes and still, wake up every day and go for it, man. That's impressive.
Well,
there
for
it is.
me, it's like, you know what? When I was drinking and drugging, I mean, I drug, when I drugged, I drugged.
Yeah.
Like I OD'd on PCP.
Jeez.
I had some of the worst freaking hangovers in me and would wake up behind a bar, because I would pass out behind the bar, not remembering to freaking where my car was. I'd be searching for it and I'd freaking fall asleep behind the bar. I mean, those things, and I could have been killed in those situations.
Right.
So I look at it as when it's your time to go, it's your time to go.
Right.
It's not like I could say, hey, God, hold on, let me go back and pay my mortgage real quick before I leave.
That's right. God had a purpose
Or let me
for
get
you.
that final check, or let me go collect that award. That's why it was important to take that award and make it a public award
Yeah.
for me.
Do you
Because
feel
I
like?
don't look for accolades.
But do you feel like you're going to be happy with the legacy you leave here? I mean, I think you should be.
I think you should be too.
I don't.
Do you feel that though?
I that still hasn't settled in my mind. I know what I'm doing as far as, creating a memory that would be positive, and then that's where I want to set my life is if I want to be able to, if I go today, I want to make sure that people realize and can use the tools that I'm leaving out there that say this guy did it the right way. He fought cancer the right way. He did, his recovery and drugs and alcohol the right way. I want my kids to be able to say, that was my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, John. Look,
My dad installed the right ways to do things.
you've definitely made an impact with people, man. Like I have met so many good people in my life, that that I'm like, I met this person, and it could be 12 shades. Like, it's John introduced me to somebody who introduced me to somebody who introduced me to somebody, and I always trace that back. I've called John from the road and said, "Hey, I'm at so and so location, and guess what? This is all because way back in the day you introduced me to this person." I really have, And John's been great, man. I love you, John. You are, and you have that from so many people in this community. You'll never have to worry about that. That's why we've all said, just go get yourself well. Do the path that you want to do.
Well, and I use a lot of inspirations. Things like Rob, your tag team partner here on this podcast, is a big inspiration for me.
Right back at
because
you,
I watched with Spring, his wife, him fight COVID.
Yeah. And you were there too, and I was laid up. I don't remember it, unfortunately.
He's unconscious,
But I know you were there.
And during this time, I'm battling cancer. Yeah,
I know.
And I'm fighting cancer, and I'm thinking to myself, who am I to cry when, or complain when this guy's unconscious, fighting for his life, and it doesn't look good. Yeah. I said, if he can fight like this, I didn't have no room to cry. None.
I remember the day
None
you told
whatsoever.
me. Yeah.
That's what, I think our community, our music community, I think we definitely, help each other out and show that we're stronger together, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I look for things to draw inspiration from, and you, Rob, happen to be one of my big factors on the inspiration.
Same to you, man. I wake up every day and just,
that helps.
Yeah, no, I got to get my ass up, because if John can do it, man, I can do it too.
Yeah.
I remember when you first came out, and I would call you to make sure you were eating.
Yeah.
And taking care of your business, because I had to get some weight on you and some strength into you.
Yeah, I'm still working on that.
Yeah, I know you are. Yeah, your wife keeps me informed.
Yep.
She is a whip.
But you know what? You've gone and you recovered enough to where you're working again, the whole 9 yards. You're functioning in public like you were prior to ever having COVID, which is amazing. You should be sitting in this seat where I'm at being interviewed.
One day.
Yeah, don't worry. We've already discussed that. When he's ready, and the thing about it is we have to put his partner, his wife, on as well on that, because as you know, John, you fought a lot, but your wife, God, she's been there every step, and the same thing with Rob.
Lita's been a rock,
Yeah,
for sure.
Oh, there was so many times your wife was told you need to pull the plug.
Oh, I know.
On this. And
yeah.
My wife and your wife would, lean on me and say, "Hey, these people are." I said, "What does your heart tell you?" And I would tell her, "What does your heart tell you?" She say, "He's got fight left in him."
Oh yeah.
I said, "Then that's what we do."
Yep, that's what we do.
If you need me to come there and tell somebody to shut the fuck up, I'll be happy to tell somebody to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Don't tell me when to quit.
Get the fuck on.
Yeah,
that's it, dude.
Yeah.
Until your heart says Rob ain't coming back, then you do what you believe is right by Rob.
I know nobody can say
this
John's
is
not a
for better or for worse.
Yeah, you're definitely
this is the better for worse thing that marriages are built on.
Yeah.
My wife had tough call in, let's see, June of 21. Had an allergic reaction to a chemo. And my blood pressure was like 30/15 or some bullshit like that, to where I could hear the doctors calling my wife because I was laid out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was conscious, but I was laid out. And I could hear the doctors talking to my wife saying, "Hey, look, we need to give him this chemical right away before he dies." And then my wife told him, of course, "Yeah, go ahead, and give it to him, because, I had the allergic reaction and almost killed me."
Right.
But what I do? I went to the hospital, got treated, got over that, and 2 weeks later, I'm sitting back in the damn chemo chair.
Damn.
And they were like, "Dude, you ready to go?" Yeah. I said, "Well, he's changing drugs. I'll be all right."
Yep.
And we got back. I was very, very gun shy about getting back in the chair. because when you get close to death, and as you know, Rob, it's when you wake up and it's intimidating,
Absolutely.
very, very intimidating. And that intimidating, I've never been through in a situation where I was intimidated at any damn thing. But being that close to death as you were, you feel that you learn that intimidation and how valuable life is.
Yeah, every day.
And you wake up in the mornings and you appreciate that cup of coffee in front of you. You appreciate your beautiful wife, just like I do. I wake up, I'm thankful every freaking morning, no matter if I'm sick from the medicines or not.
It definitely
I'm
changes
thankful that I get this. Yeah, I'm thankful for every single freaking thing that comes across my. I appreciate you, Doug. Every time I have a cancer benefit, you're first to say, "Hey, I got a basket," and you build me a goodie basket for filled full of Satcheries products. I'm very thankful for these little things, these little opportunities. That's why I showed up this past weekend for a cancer benefit. Because as you know, the doctors had me shut down for a while, and then the new chemo kicked my ass to where I couldn't even get out of bed. I was laid out, for a good couple weeks here, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that, to where I couldn't even get out of bed. I almost fell over a couple times when Carlos came by the house and I tried to go visit him from Inner Image.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily he was right there because he was able to catch me without me hitting the floor.
Wow.
But it was intense. But you know what? I told the doctor, look, I'm going back to being me. I'm going back to my public. I'm going back to what made me live.
Yeah, you have to live for sure. You have to keep living.
Because I appreciate every freaking show that's put together today. I appreciate every freaking member of the public. I appreciate all my friends like yourself and you, Doug, and Rob. I appreciate Lawler. I appreciate your wife, Spring. I appreciate, and there's so much appreciation in my heart at this point in life. And people, you don't realize, unless you hit that line,
right?
To where you're close to death, you don't realize the appreciation you learn.
Mm-hmm.
The littlest thing.
Oh, it changes.
And I appreciate. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I'm at today, and that's why I worked so hard I went to that benefit to try to inspire him to put that fight in.
Yeah.
To continue to fight because he's got the same cancer I did. I said, look, they told me in 2020 I'd be gone.
Yeah.
I'm still here.
It makes a difference, man. It makes a difference in people's lives when you show up,
Yeah.
It's that simple too, just to show up, and it's huge.
And if I don't feel like I'm physically strong enough to show up, I'm not going to put myself back in the position like I did the award show.
Yeah, but you don't have to. You can show up in different ways, though. You don't have to physically be there either, So, but just being there and them knowing you're there for them.
He's not silent.
Yeah,
he's not silent.
I knew that day when I went to that award show. I told Lita prior to I'm not myself.
Yeah.
We got to be really careful.
Well, we knew you were pushing.
I don't think I said, but this I have to do.
But you still made it, man.
But I won't. I can't put myself in that position again.
Yeah. It was.
So I use a little bit better judgment. I use a little bit better judgment now.
But I don't think anything was going to keep you from going.
No, no. Yeah. Even if I had to be wheelchaired in, no.
Yeah.
I told Lita there was no way I was going to miss it.
Yeah.
I worked that whole week trying to put weight on me, enough weight to where I could carry it, because I couldn't keep. At that point, I was having problems keeping food down.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was throwing it up all the time. And I like I said, I was blaming it on chemo. Little did I know I was very, very sick. And I showed up over there at that show. I'm a 200-pound man.
Mm-hmm.
I showed up at that show around 165.
Yeah.
And didn't realize I was that sick.
Yeah, you were pretty much...
But I wasn't going to miss it. I was not going to miss something that y'all created. There's no fucking way.
I'm wearing that shirt. I'm wearing that T-shirt tonight.
Yep, sure is.
Wow!
I'm wearing that tonight, man.
I wear all those. I got all types of different ones that, I've created over the time of doing, because I've been known to do, of course, cancer benefits to raise money for the clinic I'm in. Especially when they opened the clubs back up, I took my birthday bash and I created a concert for that, and where all the proceeds went to the hospital, and we raised a couple $1,000s to help the hospital because during COVID, I was watching so many. I'm lucky, I'm blessed because I was able to do a GoFundMe and a concert, and y'all helped me. If it wasn't for the public, you guys, all you guys out there that are listening to these podcasts and whatnot, you guys are the reason I'm alive today. Because there was no way, and there still isn't, no way for me to carry these cancer treatments on my own because it's so expensive. And I was watching as I'm being, paying my payment to cancer, I'm watching another lady get turned down because she didn't have the money, because of COVID. It was like, I don't know, her payment was like $200 or $250.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, well, look, I got, all this money they raised for me for my fucking cancer. I got enough to help this lady. So I told them, you know what? I said, go ahead and charge me for her chemo. And they were like, do what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow.
And they charged me for her chemo today. And they said, look, that's another $250. Can you afford that? I said, look, just do it. Because, the public donates me money to help me and to do what I need to do, to get through my cancer treatments.
Mm-hmm.
But I cannot be selfish and not give this lady a chance. And this lady's crying at this point.
Yeah, I bet.
I told her, look, you're going to live another week. You're going to live another month. You're going to get this chemo in you, and you're going to live another month. I said, hopefully that, will help you along your path. And still today, she's still receiving treatment. Now that 2020 is over, she's still receiving treatments.
That's good.
And it just, I felt obligated because the public, helped me. But who am I not to help these patients? Who am I, because there were so many that were getting turned away because they couldn't afford it because, everything was shut down. They lost their jobs. They lost everything.
Yep.
I'm thinking to myself, no, I'm good. This particular lady is right there. I said, well, let me go ahead and help at least one, And that's when I called Justin Wildcat and said, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to get inner image for all the saints. A lot of the bands that I know, I'm going to put together a benefit, and it's going to go to the hospital and help these people. And that's what I did.
Right.
Because everybody deserves that, again, that second chance.
Mm-hmm.
And it means the world. Like that. That's why I do speakings and whatnot. I know I can impact people. I've had stories where a guy called me out of the blue, literally out of the blue. I hadn't heard from him in years, but he listened to one of them. Well, you know how I go live on social network to update everybody. And he was like, dude, I felt obligated to call you because you just changed my life. I said, what do you mean? He says, I just listened to your video and I was going to kill myself. And I thought, well, I'm going to listen to this. And, and he said he was trying to get drunk to kill himself that night. He says that, I listened to your video and the fight you're putting forth, and I said, life ain't that bad.
Right.
If you could fight cancer like you're doing, who am I to quit on life because my family and my mom died.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still alive today and listens to the videos when I put them out. And I'm sure he'll be listening to this. He listens to everything and stays in contact with me.
Mm-hmm.
John, you've turned a lot of lemons into lemonade, my friend. You definitely have.
But I got blessed. Just like Rob's in a situation where he's blessed.
Yeah.
And Doug, you're a blessing to us all as well. You're always there when, as a friend when needed. Yeah, you've taken me to the doctors, and you always help other cancer patients, or to help me with different efforts.
Yeah, it's good
which
to
I'll
get
be
back.
hitting you up about because the HCC put me on a very big project. Have y'all heard of TED.com?
TED, like TED Talks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, they were granted a TEDTalks.com, thing. And of course, it's a nonprofit. Anything that you do on TED Talks is nonprofit, of course, and things like that. Well, I am gonna be sitting down with Stevie Ray and giving my life story. But we've also been invited to do some things in San Antonio, which we're going to need sponsors for. you know,
Hit me up.
I'm going to be talking to you about that. Yeah, no, which is a really cool opportunity to put my story in the light like this, and to where it's on a TED Talks, to where it's now a national, ordeal.
Yeah, that's a big deal, dude.
And yeah, and they picked it up, and they picked up PRETA and the HCC off all the clinics we were doing.
And
From the vision myself and PRETA had with the cancer clinics, or the clinics to help other people, the male clinics.
And the HCC is the Houston Community College system here, and John's been a very big supporter of theirs. That's another thing that people don't really see. It's not directly in the music, but no, John's tied in to help them as well.
Well, like I said, it's a responsibility to spread the hope, because people don't realize it today. Everybody lives on hope. I don't care who you are. You could be the richest freaking guy in the world. You're still living on hope, because you're hoping the stock market don't crash to where you lose all your freaking money. People today, you go to work, you hope you don't lose your job. You hope we don't wind up in a situation like in 2020 to where, nobody was working. If you didn't learn in 2020 what hope meant, and then I don't know where you were. I don't know where you lived, because you lived off hope every freaking day in 2020. Hoping to make it until the country opened back up to you could go back to work.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I hope to make it to tomorrow fighting this cancer.
Right.
Rob, you hope to have your job tomorrow.
Yeah.
Doug, you hope you have your job tomorrow to pay your bills and spend time with your wife and kids. Everybody lives on some sort of hope, and they just don't realize it. This is what life's built on, is hope. We hope. My daughter Chelsea is hoping to get into college right now, to increase her education and meet her goals of what she wants to become. It's all about the hope of doing it, and you take that hope and you put it into action, and that's how you live life. But people don't realize that's what life's developed as, is hope. You live off hope.
I agree. Keep feeding that spring of hope. That's important. That is very important, especially in young people that just starting out. That they can see a lot of evil in this world, or a lot of hurt, but everything is in their hands. Everything. It's endless possibilities, but you have to step forward. You have to do a John Janatsch. You have to make that step, that change. Because nobody else is going to do it for you. It has to be you. And
right, you got to dig deep inside and say, "Well, go back to those roads. You got to go. You could take the left road, or you could take the right one. Decide which path you're going to take, and put the work in and do what you got to do to make your hope, the hope you're shooting for, the dreams you're shooting for, come true."
John, I got to ask you, as we wrap this thing up, or before we wrap it up, do you have anything you want to push, promote, or talk about coming up, or what do you have in the immediate future for you besides chemo pills?
Right. Besides being unconscious tomorrow after I take my chemo medicine in the morning. But you know what? I'm about to accomplish 21 straight days of this. Saturday will be 21 straight days, and I get a week break. So,
good.
kind of excited for the week break.
Yeah, that's
good. Because these pills have been pretty rough. It's been a rough go.
Well, let us know if we can bring you
But-
any dinner or anything that helps your week go a little bit better.
Yeah, I was disappointed in myself. I lost 3 pounds, and when I went to the doctor the other day, I was really mad at myself. But
Shoot
went
you over
ahead
some
and
ribs
bu-
or something.
I can't have ribs.
Oh no.
They changed my diet.
Oh,
They
that's
changed my
right.
diet to where I can only have chicken, fish, and turkey.
He's the salmonator now.
Well, I think Spring's probably up on what you can get.
Yeah, that's right.
So as soon as I found out I was low on weight, there was a Einstein's Bagels not too far from the clinic on the way home. So I was like, "Hey, Spring,
Yeah, she was excited
Let's
about the
stop here.
bagels.
yeah." I said, "Let's stop here. I'll buy."
Yeah. Now you
So I
can't.
went and got me a couple cream cheese and lox bagels and a ham and turkey and Swiss bagel.
Uh-huh.
That's right. No
That
ham.
way I could start working on my freaking weight, Because by God, if I'm down 3 pounds, or because you're talking to a guy that went from 165 in December all the way back up to 200 pounds a couple months later.
Wow.
Because the things I learned about cancer, the 2 things that cancer attacks is your hydration level and your weight. It takes those things away from you. Those are tools that you use to fight.
Right.
And I made a commitment to myself when I started to control what I can control. If cancer's going to kill me, great. Find your own freaking way. You ain't going to take it on something I can control. And I can control my weight. And I can control my hydrations levels. But so, cancer's got to find another way to kill me.
I have seen that. I have seen that in his fight where his weight gets taken away, but he goes as soon as he can start putting it in his mouth, he would go directly to work on it.
Sparking up that pit.
Yeah, we'll get him some next week. We'll be around. Get him some pasta, some fish, some chicken, any of that stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what to, I'm going to have to do like a chicken cacciatore or something, with the pasta or on a rice dish or something, because this is driving me crazy. I can't have no dang steaks.
Yeah, that's rough.
And y'all both know by my photos how I feel about steak.
Yeah.
Don't worry, there's some other good foods out there. We'll have to.
Matter of fact, you got me a grill, Doug, while during the 2020 thing as a thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome, man.
For all this, you got it for being supportive of your company and whatnot. And I was, God, if you remember, mine was all rusted out, falling apart. I was still trying to use the damn thing when you brought me that one.
Yep, I couldn't let you go without, man. But you can,
Dude,
you can put chicken and fish on that.
No, I don't think a fish has ever hit my hill. But But I'm gonna buy one of those little, what do they call it? The bricks, to where you can put your salmon on there or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I bought some tuna.
Oh, that's good stuff.
Little tuna steaks
Oh yeah,
to do that way.
those are
To
good.
try that, I'm just not accustomed to not even be able to eat my pork steaks, my beef steaks. I mean, come on, a ribeye.
Hey, that.
I was complaining about that. Spring will tell you, I was in the hospital complaining about that this past Wednesday.
Hey, the fish.
Y'all got a motherfucker's diet all fucked up. I can't even have a freaking steak.
The fish, man. Try the Tony's Hatchery's spice and herb, and then add some lime in that. Not lemon, but try lime. Not as strong, but it's a nice little tang on there. I love it like that. But
Okay.
I eat a lot of salmon. But don't worry, we'll come up with some ideas for you next week. How about that?
That worked. I got several shows. If you go to the BFE Rock Club or, of course, my home, one of my homes, and then my other home is Wildcatter Saloon.
Mm-hmm.
If you've never been to Wildcatter Saloon or either of these clubs,
You're missing out.
Justin and Carmen and Dana over there at the Wildcatter Saloon
Awesome people.
are just the most outstanding people.
Yes.
Same with Frankie at BFE. These are some outstanding. Not only do they own the bar, but they are individually outstanding people in our society.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
I remember when the COVID hit, Justin and them went across the green and would do, because they wouldn't get a lot of kids to do their graduation parties and whatnot, their proms.
Yeah, I remember that now.
And
Yeah.
so Justin opened up the club and said, "Hey, we could do smaller gatherings here. I'll give you the building."
Yeah, he's always thinking outside the
To
box.
do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and he's
Yeah.
always making an impact on our community. And Frankie's always giving up the clubs at BFE to do these, like this past weekend,
Yeah.
cancer benefits.
Yeah.
These are genuine individuals that, and Carmen and Dana the same way. They're genuine individuals
Yeah, great people.
that not only own clubs but care about their community.
Right.
And guess
that's why no matter how sick I get, I go out of my way.
and guess what? And guess what, John? I met them because of you. Once again. And yeah, they are fantastic people. I'm glad to see all those people. Every time I see them, they bring a smile to my face. But
they do too. They do me as well. I was so excited last Thursday when I got to see Justin. I didn't get to see Carmen that night, but I'll see her this Saturday. It was very exciting for me to see Justin and Jay from Felty Nasty Productions and Law. Well, of course, I saw Lawler earlier in the day, but to be able to go out there and support Justin and the concert.
Yeah.
And to see the smile on their face and just the gratitude that I felt walking into that building. It's like, okay,
Yeah, it feels like home.
I'm back. Yeah, I'm back where I belong with the people that care, and that help me go through day to day. Hasn't been a morning, and ever since I got sick, that Justin hasn't messaged me or called me and said, how are you feeling?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Ever since day one. And he's known me longer sick than he has healthy doing these shows.
Wow.
Yeah, and the thing is with Justin, boy, they took it in the shorts for a long time during the shutdown, but that hadn't changed that guy as far as him giving back or him being nice to people. He is still the same person. They are 100% give at that club, man.
Definitely.
I
give it to them, man. Thank God they're still around. Yeah. I'm very happy about
They got
that.
They got a festival thing coming up. It's a crawfish festival of some sort, I believe. That's to give back to to some sort of foundation. Which is amazing.
Yeah, we'll have.
They just did the Brazilian festival, which Carmen is part of the creation.
Very successful.
Of that.
Yeah.
Very successful, and that goes to helping people.
Yeah, we'll have Justin on here eventually because he's got some good stories through that stretch, man. That guy is he's definitely went all extremes on there. Yeah, so yeah.
That's those people. I look forward to seeing you guys out in the public, other than sitting in my home sick. I look forward to this. These are the things, again, that we take for granted that, that I'm able to do.
Well, we do appreciate you, my friend, and we love you. But we also have we don't want you to think that you came away without records, because guess what? You've easily broke the record of the longest podcast we've ever done. And we knew that was going to be the case coming on, man, because to be honest, we could talk to you forever. And but hey, let's do this again. We'll have to keep you around, so we'll definitely keep you around.
Absolutely. But I'll make sure you get plenty of listeners to listen to the podcast. Watch. Awesome. I'm out to set records on your podcast.
There you go.
Of most listeners. Since I set the record for the longest, I'm going to set the most listeners. I'm going to make every freaking person that comes on your podcast shoot for the record I set. Cool. Because I'm going to push this sucker to where people people will listen. Like when they go live, people will listen.
Look, John, always the promoter, man.
Always promoter. Yep.
Buddy, we appreciate you, and we love you, John.
Love you guys.
Love you, John.
All right, buddy. You take care.
You bet. Okay.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. Bye-bye.
That's the Nonsense Chronicles. Please like and subscribe.